I was disappointed as a Spurs supporter, of course.
We're not going to get these Champions League nights unless we deliver in the league, are we? Because Newcastle are not going to win the Champions League.
Players ball watching whilst a centre-back lines up the worst overhead kick of all time.
If I was a defender, if I was a midfielder in front of that, I'd have blamed myself for not being able to clear that. In the next few years, he's breaking into that England team.
Liverpool's got a huge chance, not just of being on the plane, I think, but starting as well. From a Newcastle perspective, it's a Christmas gift, isn't it?
To come in and be one of the main players, and he has been for Brentford, particularly over the last two players, along with Romero. He's been one of the star players. I get so disappointed that I didn't do more up at Newcastle. And the main reason, because you have a manager like Sir Bobby Robson, he would glow. There was nothing else I was going to do. I was desperate to play for this guy. And you're looking at a stature of a club like that and thinking, what an idiot. Why did you leave that all behind?
Please stay at St James's Park. That location is perfect, right in the middle of the city centre. Newcastle is built around Newcastle United Football Club at St James's Park. It's the cathedral on the hill. You can see it from everywhere.
Yeah, Darren, all roads lead to the derby, the first league meeting between the two for a long time.
It's going to be lively. People don't understand how big that rivalry is, how big this game is.
Hello and welcome to Inside the Toon, your talkSPORT YouTube show dedicated to Newcastle United. I'm your host, Olly Clink. With me today, I've got journalist and Newcastle fan, Jack Cunningham. And what a treat, the former Newcastle midfielder, Darren Ambrose. Guys, welcome to the show. Darren, I was very much ready to gloat at you as a Spurs fan, but then they managed to score a slow motion overhead kick and equalise very late on in that game, which is really frustrating as a Newcastle fan.
Yeah, you know what? I was disappointed as a Spurs supporter, of course, only getting the draw. But I thought for this show works quite well. No one could gloat, but I'm delighted after three ridiculous results for Spurs to get a draw against Newcastle at St James's Park after our current record that we've got there. But it's a pleasure to be here. I've obviously done the Inside Spurs, but looking round, couple of players, obviously Sir Bobby Robson on the wall where I played under him, Alan Shearer there. Delighted to be here.
Yeah, can't wait to get into a bit of that. It's a disgrace you're not on the wall, by the way. Behind. We'll sort that out at some point. I mean, Jack, on that game, it felt like once again it's points dropped from Newcastle. They were leading twice in the game and yet have ended up with just 1 point.
Yeah, I don't think it was a bad performance from Newcastle. I don't think we played as well as we can do. I think Newcastle were the team who were on the front foot and did more than enough to actually win the game. Unfortunately, look, Spurs have 2 shots on target and they score 2 goals. It does happen sometimes. I think the frustration is overall from Newcastle fans, I totally get this, is now 11 points dropped from winning positions. And I think it's 6 points lost in added time alone. So if you think about Liverpool, of course, lost in added time, Arsenal lost in added time, and then Romero was equalising in added time as well. And that's obviously becoming a problem when you think about Newcastle last season, didn't drop barely any points from winning positions. So that's the real frustration because I know you're not going to necessarily take all those 11 points, but if you do, you're second in the league rather than where we are at the moment. But the performances are getting there and it's still 7 points out of our last 9. Feel like it is starting to come together.
Yeah, that's why it's so frustrating though as well. And actually Hal was asked about it after the game. And he did talk about it becoming psychological as well, Darren, and you've been a player probably in these situations before. And Hal talked about a fear of conceding. And actually, as fans as well, I was sitting there thinking, this is not done. Even after Gordon had scored that penalty, I thought, this is not done. And that's despite the fact that Spurs had hardly threatened really all game.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been there in the dressing rooms before and seen things like this. Is it a psychological issue? You know, does it feed into the players when it gets into added time?
Yeah, it can do. It can do. It depends how mentally strong the players are or individual. You need everyone on board. You need everyone mentally strong enough to handle it. I've been in both situations. Obviously, Spurs coming off the back of 3 poor results, going to St James's Park, a place where they've not got a good record, and it's a difficult place to go. But that's also a difficult team to play against, and you see that in the first half an hour where Spurs were poor, but they were just coming to stop Newcastle playing. And I've been there on the other side when you have that mental block that even when you go 2-1 up, can you defend that lead? And a lot of teams have been there. A lot of players have been in this situation. And unfortunately, once again, Newcastle couldn't defend that lead. And right at the very end, look, I say unfortunately, obviously, I'm speaking as a Spurs supporter here, but I'm speaking for you guys as well. You don't expect the centre half of the opposition to overhead kick it from 12, 13 yards on an angle where he's just been laying on the floor, he's jumped up and done that. It's just one of these periods for Newcastle that these things happen and you've got to ride that out and just keep being confident that you can ride it out.
Yeah, it's funny because Jack, you've already said it as well, that over the last 4 games, it hasn't been 4 wins, but even Howe said himself that he feels that the team is getting there. He said he's actually much happier than he was before the international break. So the signs are there, but they've got to sort this out, haven't they? Because these drop points are going to cost them. And actually, it's that consistency in the league that is so important. And it's all well and good doing well in the Champions League, and obviously that's been great. But the league is the bread and butter. And at the moment, Newcastle, who could be as high as second or maybe even more realistically something like 5th. They find themselves 13th at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And I think look, Newcastle want these Champions League nights. We've been loving these Champions League nights. We're not going to get these Champions League nights unless we deliver in the league, are we? Because Newcastle are not going to win the Champions League. Well, let's be realistic, they're not. So the only way they're going to get back in the Champions League is through the Premier League, where hopefully we're going to have 5 places again, obviously depending on the UEFA coefficient, etc., how the other teams do in Europe. But that consistency needs to come, and unfortunately these drop points, especially initially away from home. Of course, we had a great win against Everton, finally ending that hoodoo away from home, where actually Newcastle had to take a 4-goal lead to make sure that we sealed the 3 points, and you can't do that every game. So that does need to change. But equally, what I did say again, I do feel like if you'd offered everyone from Manchester City, Everton and Spurs 7 points beforehand, I think most people would have took it, because I think realistically, a lot of people would have probably only said you're only going to get 4 from that actually. Maybe lose to City at home, draw Everton and beat Spurs. So although I think it's the way the game works out, and look, you've got to be realistic. The way the game worked out was frustrating. I still think if you said to a Newcastle fan before, would you take some points? I said yes.
Can I just ask about the goalkeeper situation as well? Because there's been an injury, reported groin injury for Nick Pope. He could be out for actually a few weeks. It felt like, if we're being honest, it came at a good time. On the last show, we did talk about whether Pope should be dropped because he'd made a fair few errors heading into this game. What have you made of Ramsdale over the last 2 games, Jack?
Thought he was really good against Everton. Thought his distribution changed everything. I saw a good pass map from our good friend Adam Cleary, which showed the difference in the fact that Ramsdale could actually get the ball out of his own half, which is nice to change rather than Pope who can't. So, but I thought there was a really good pass he played, especially in the second half where he played it into Willock, then Willock put it around the corner at Walter, and we got a shot from that. Basically, just Ramsdale split the defence. I was like, Pope, he can't do that. I can't even think about doing that. He doesn't see that. So that means good. In terms of the goal he conceded, the Dewsbury one, I don't know what you could do about that. I saw some people blaming him for the goals last night, and yes, look, the Romero one, because it bounces about 20 times before it goes in, it does look like he's diving in slow motion a little bit, but there's about 5 defenders in the way who should block it. They should block it.
I was going to ask Darren this. I know you probably had your shirt off celebrating a draw, as most Spurs fans were. But
it was off after that penalty decision. That's fair as well. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. Stonewall. Absolute Stonewall.
I'm surprised we're not speaking about that.
You're on Inside the Two, mate. Stonewall pen. Doesn't even get mentioned. But going back to that goal, it's funny because I saw a few people blaming Ramsdale as well. But actually, I think that the biggest problem there was that Newcastle failed to clear the ball whilst Romero's lining up an overhead kick. It's almost ridiculous. You've got players ball watching whilst a centre-back lines up the worst overhead kick of all time.
It is. It's one of those that it takes a couple of, I'd say, milliseconds to register what he's just done. And in that moment, it's got from his foot to around the 6-yard box or even closer. All the defenders, you see the defenders as it goes past them. I think Dan Burn was there, kind of looked at it as if, oh my God, how haven't I cleared that? And then it's gone past about 3 or 4 defenders. For me, as a player, whether I wasn't a defender, I wouldn't put blame on the goalkeeper there. If I was a defender, if I was a midfielder in front of that, I'd have blamed myself for not being able to clear that. But probably the reaction of seeing this centre-half, 8 foot in the air, coming off his shin, it's bounced. Then it registers what's happened, too late to clear it. Maybe Ramsdale should have been maybe a bit proactive instead of reactive and got there earlier on. But I don't put any blame on Ramsdale there.
The only goal I've ever seen that's gone in that kind of slowly, because it did feel like the world stopped, was actually Modiame against Brighton when it came off his heel. And it just seemed to hang in the air for that long. This was different. It was a bouncing bomb into the goal. But yeah, very, very frustrating. I mean, I do want to ask you about Eddie Howe's performance in this game, because there have been other games this season where we've questioned maybe the timing of substitutions, the personnel that he's brought on. Did you feel he got much wrong last night, given that heading right up to the last moment, Newcastle were set to win the game?
So I've obviously been critical of Gordon, on this show before, because, as I said, I don't think he's been doing enough for well over a year. But you know what? I want him to play well. And he played well when he came on. Played a massive part in the first goal. Great run down the left-hand side. He plays it into Voltemada. Voltemada lays it off for Bruno, who scored. Bruno came on at half-time. I know that was because Tonali was injured, but still thought Bruno was brilliant when he came on. Totally changed everything about our passing. It was a lot more incisive. And again, he scored at home. He's got 4 goals at home this season. He really is delivering at St James's Park. So that was great substitution. Gordon then sticks the penalty away. I know people were like, well, Voltemada should take it, but Gordon's the dedicated penalty taker. Yeah. He is. It was the same against Union Saint-Gilloise when Voltemada was on the pitch and Gordon still took the 2 penalties. So Gordon's the dedicated penalty taker. He's not scored since January, so I was a bit nervous. But you know what? He stuck it away nicely. So Gordon did well. Thought Elanga was okay. Maybe not as good as he was against Everton. And then I think the only one that you could criticise him for, which I've seen some criticism for, is bringing Cher on in added time.
Yeah.
Going back to a back 5. But we've done that numerous times last season to come off, and we've done it well before even the 90th minute, and it's worked.
Does it invite too much pressure?
I don't think Spurs even had that much pressure. They just got their one corner that we didn't clear.
I think if it works, if a substitution like that works,
that's the thing,
never questioned, and it's never even spoken about. It's not. We wouldn't be sitting here going, "Oh, the substitution of Fabian Schär was amazing."
That's the thing,
because it just goes unnoticed. But the fact, you are right, even at like kids level, you put 5 at the back, you do invite pressure. I thought, going back to the Bruno sub, the game was crying out for that, because, as we said, Spurs were there, and I was sat at home watching. They were there to stop Newcastle playing in the first half, and they'd done a decent job, pretty decent job, and it was crying out for that, as you said, the intent from Bruno, the different intent of passing, and always looking forward and getting forward and just driving the team. And to be fair, the substitution of him made Spurs have to change their game plan as well, because it was working before that. But I thought he got that one right.
The 4-1 win at Everton was maybe up there as one of the best of the season. First away league win as well. Really, really important result. The player I wanted to ask you about, and I'll start with you on this, Darren, is Lewis Miley, who I thought was man of the match in the game. And it was a big one for him as well, being brought in. Tonali was obviously on the bench. And actually, Darren, you've maybe been in this situation. That Newcastle midfield, whatever their form is hard to break into for a young player. But Miley stepped up and he was brilliant in that game.
Good breath of fresh air. And I think in times where it's not going particularly well, especially in the league campaign or whatever campaign, to have a young player that's come through the ranks as well, you all automatically get a little bit of leeway as well from the guy. I thought he's been sensational. Every time I watch him, I think he's fantastic. He's a future England player for sure. He's definitely future England national. Maybe the summer's come a bit too early, but I look at a player like him and I think in the next few years, he's breaking into that England team. Just looks so comfortable and composed on the ball, and he's got that tenacity as well that I really like. And I've been really, really impressed every time I've seen him.
And Jack, I feel like what was really important, especially away from home, was Newcastle's ball retention. They kept giving the ball away, and it was really costing them. Even if you think about, go as far back as the West Ham game, you include the Brentford game, that was really hurting them, that they couldn't keep a hold of the ball in midfield. And I felt like that's what Miley brought.
Miley was so good against Everton. It was his best performance probably since his breakthrough season, I think. Because, he had the breakthrough season, comes in as a 17-year-old, has to play loads of games because of injuries. Longstaff basically did all of his running for him because he didn't have the physicality to do that. And then you can tell he's really worked on the physical side of his game and he can get around the pitch now. In last 90 minutes, against Spurs, he won 6 out of 7 headers. So, he's winning those aerial duels as well. That was the part of his game he was always missing. He's always had the technique. He's always had the ability to retain the ball. And in an away game like that at Everton, where, it's clearly going to be a difficult place to play that, and he just dealt with it so well. Just kept the ball nicely, kept him moving. Not like he's not always trying to play it forward. But you don't always need that in a midfield three. You can have one of them who can just keep it safe. That's fine. One of the others can do that. But he was also positive with his passing as well. I just think that he always chose the right option rather than maybe something a bit risky or over the top.
You know, he's fearless, and that majority of the time you get that with young players. But at the level that he's playing at Newcastle, to be fearless, you have to be mentally tough, mentally strong, and that's exactly what it is. He wants the ball in those tight areas. He'll keep possession. He'll put a tackle in. When I say breath of fresh air, I mean because he's come through the ranks, he's 19, he loves the fact that he's playing for Newcastle United. The pressures are probably not registering just yet because he is so young. That comes and that develops, and that sometimes takes away from a player's game. But at the moment, that fearlessness that he's got just really helps him and the team.
Yeah, he's already racked up loads of senior appearances, do you know what I mean? And one thing I've been impressed with as well is his set-piece delivery.
Yeah.
He's clearly been working on that. I didn't know he could take a corner. And then that first minute against Everton, he delivers one of our best corners of the season, and Malik Chow heads it in and we're 1-0 up after a minute. So that is adding things to his game all the time.
The other key difference I feel, obviously, in the last few games has been the fullbacks. That was a huge issue before the return of Livramento and Lewis Hall, and I just feel that they've been so impressive. Okay, you can probably look at Lewis Hall last night for the first goal. Maybe he can get across to that first-time cross a bit better, but at the same time, they've brought so much, haven't they, since they've come back in, Darren?
Yeah, I mean, I picked out when I arrived here, I picked out Lewis Hall. I thought he was fantastic last night, and again, young player. But for me, Livramento as well. I covered a lot of the Euros in the summer, the under-21s, when they went on to retain the trophy. And every time, sometimes it was yourself, every time the host asked me who could make that step up, I always said Livramento. He looked by far the most attacking outlet in the under-21s as well. I mean, Elliot Anderson seems to be the one that stepped up from that 21 team so far, because of the injuries, of course. But those two fullbacks, you could have right and left back there for the next 10 years at Newcastle.
Let's say Thomas Tuchel in the summer at the World Cup decides to play Reece James in midfield, because you feel at the moment that right back is his, because he's one of the best in the league for that.
Yeah, rightfully so.
But let's say he does try him in midfield. Is there a world where the starting fullbacks for England are Livramento and Hall?
I don't see why not. I don't see why not. They keep performing the way they are at the moment. I mean, Thomas Tuchel has shown he gives players a chance, and he plays and picks players on form. I mean, you look at Livramento in particular, his versatility where he can play right and left, I think that stands him in real good stead. The only other player I can probably think is Jed Spence, to a certain degree, that can play right and left as well. So that may be a straight shootout of who's going to be on the plane for the World Cup. Yeah,
and you'd have to have Livramento in there, I think, at the moment. And I think particularly on Lewis Hall, it's quite fun. I did a show the other night on talkSPORT. Someone texted in calling me a clown, not for the first time.
That was me, sorry. That was me.
Yeah. I was up with Lewis Skelly is not getting the game time that he wants. Okay, he started a couple of games recently. He's not getting the game time he wants. O'Reilly is doing okay for Manchester City, but Lewis Hall's got a huge chance, not just of being on the plane, I think, but starting as well.
I think, I'm sorry, who's calling you a clown? Look, Hall is England's left back. I'm sorry, there's not a conversation even. Like, I've had this argument with Quaker Afari and stuff as well about he's like Mazu Skelly. I'm like, all right, Mazu Skelly cannot do what Lewis Hall can. He simply can't. And I'm not having England's left back being some bloke who's getting pity minutes at the end of a 4-1 win over Tottenham. He came on for a minute because they decided to take Calafiori off. If Calafiori's Arsenal's left back, Mazu Skelly cannot be England's left back. It's as simple as that. He could go out on loan in January and maybe get some minutes. Yeah, no problem, fine. But Hall has got better technique, pretty much on the ball, definitely. He's a better crosser of the ball. And I think defensively, he's better as well, because Mazu Skelly got caught out for the buy-in goal and he's looked a bit wobbly in other games as well. I mean, when he came on against Chelsea, I thought he was poor. I thought he was really poor.
I was going to say, actually, Darren, obviously Lewis Hall's had his injury issues. Do you think that's been why people have almost forgotten how good he can be? And why they're not thinking about him in those conversations?
Yeah, perhaps, yeah. I mean, out of sight, out of mind. That's the saying, of course. And that look, whoever's going to be playing the most consistent is going to be England's left back, in my opinion, because as I said, Thomas Tuchel has shown that he doesn't bow down to pressure. He doesn't bow down to egos, to managers of clubs. He'll play the players that he feels are on form at that time. If Lewis Hall can stay in the team and produce performances like he has been, then and Livramento on vice versa on the other side, of course they're going to be in the question. And as you said, Lewis Skelly, I did something for Sky Sports recently and I picked my team. And it was when he was getting a few more minutes and I had Lewis Skelly and I got called a clown left, right and centre. It wasn't about that, it was just... but you know
that
what I mean?
Might be me, but...
It's Werner again. But it doesn't matter who everyone's going to have an opinion on who they want. And of course, you guys being Newcastle supporters, you're going to be a little bit more biased towards your own players and I would for Jed Spence and so on. And that's tribal and that's right. But Thomas Tuchel is the man to pick the player on form and hopefully he picks the right one.
Yeah, Jed Spence is getting nowhere near, mate. There's been some more news for Newcastle this week. And as fans, it's very good news because Yoane Wissa is not going to be going to the African Cup of Nations with... DR Congo. Listen, it's a shame for him because obviously he is going to want to go and represent his country and I think sometimes it's understated how much that tournament means to these players.
Huge
Absolutely. So, it is a bit of a shame for Wissa in that sense, but from a Newcastle perspective, it's a Christmas gift, isn't it? The fact that they are going to hopefully have a Yoane Wissa, finally coming back into the team, Jack, can only be good news.
Yeah, look, I think we've got to first of all say to Wissa, he's obviously made this decision. He's decided to give the priority to Newcastle because of the amount of effort Newcastle put into trying to sign him in the summer. Now, I don't condone the way Wissa went on at all, going on strike. He did an ESAC, right? He did. He absolutely did. However, and we shouldn't just brush that under the carpet. I don't like that. Obviously, what we'll say is he clearly wanted to join Newcastle because he turned down other clubs as well. Newcastle were the only team he wanted to join, so no matter what, he was like, right, I'm all in on getting the Newcastle move. Then he goes away on international duty and he suffers some knee injury on a dodgy pitch. And it's such a shame because he's never injured. So it would have been nice to have him fully fit to start. Obviously, Howe's taking his time with him because I don't think Howe wants an ESAC situation where he comes back half cooked and we've got him running around for 6 to 8 games doing absolutely nothing like ESAC. So I think... That was a little dig, but not so subtle.
Not that you've been watching him.
No, not at all. No, I didn't hate watching him. So this it will change because one thing is just going to ease the load on Walter-Mata. Walter-Mata has had a brilliant start in Newcastle. He can't play 90 minutes, 3 games a week. We need someone to come on. Even last night would have been perfect to have Vista come off the last 20 minutes and just run around and press the Spurs defence and push them a bit further back. Walter-Mata couldn't really do that. You could tell he was tired.
He looked tired. I'm not blaming him, but he looked tired.
He looked tired,
but the issue is, I think Howe, when Newcastle needed a goal, was reluctant to once again put Anthony Gordon through the middle because it just hasn't worked. No. He's missed so many chances from that position, and I just feel that it's that difference in option, isn't it, for Newcastle, having Yoane Wissa, who, by the way, scored 19 Premier League goals last season, who knows where the back of the net is. I think it's going to be really important as the fixtures also build up.
Derby winner on his debut. What
he's doing as well, Yoane Wissa, I have to feel for you guys, the Newcastle supporters, Eddie Howe, and the player himself, because as you said, consistently played the last 4 years at Brentford. Got 7 goals, then 12, then 19. He's consistently getting better and improving, hence why you paid a lot of money. Never been injured, gets this dodgy knee injury, not made an appearance yet. It must be so frustrating for Eddie Howe, because he would have signed Voldemar as well alongside Wissa to allow them to settle into the to allow him to settle into the Premier League when he's got Wissa as well. When he comes back, I think that could turn your season in terms of winning games. That he'll be the difference with winning and drawing.
Does it mean there is a bit of pressure on him though, Jack? Let's be fair here.
I think there is.
He's coming back from a lengthy injury, and immediately there'll be expectation that he needs to deliver, even if it's not with goals, but just performances.
Well, look, he's 29 now because obviously we signed him when he was 28, but his birthday was very shortly after. So he's 29. Newcastle signed him for £55 million because they wanted an instant impact. That was the thing. We haven't signed him thinking we're going to get 4 or 5 seasons out of him. I don't think we are. But if we can get 2-3 years of a lot of goals, then it's worth it. Visser does need to hit the ground running because he's probably the most natural finisher in the team immediately. As soon as he comes back, he's the most natural finisher in the team immediately. Voldemort has scored some lovely goals, but I haven't really seen him. We haven't really created enough chances for him to see if he's actually a natural finisher in the sense of like a one-on-one, being in the right position necessarily to score a goal. So that's where Visser's going to make a big impact, I think. But you are right. He's going to be under a lot of pressure immediately.
He knows that, though. He'd have known that before the injury. He'd have known that Newcastle paid a lot of money to come in and be one of the main players, and he has been for Brentford, particularly over the last two players, along with Mbeumo. He's been one of the star players. So there's a certain amount of pressure in that, not anywhere near what's going to be put on his shoulders. He'll be well aware of that, and I think he'll be itching, and he can't wait to get back, I'm sure of it. Yeah.
Darren, as we have you as our special guest, let's park the Tottenham fan side of things for just a moment. We've got to talk about your time wearing the black and white. I played 37 times for Newcastle, 6 goals as well. Obviously brought in under Bobby Robson as well. I mean, just firstly, what was he like as a man to play under? I
mean, incredible. I mean, when you say those stats, I get so disappointed that I didn't do more up at Newcastle. And the main reason, because you have a manager like Sir Bobby Robson that has actively shown interest. He came down to watch me play for Ipswich against Grimsby away. Him and Charlie Woods, who's a big connection at Ipswich, chief scout at Newcastle, was Sir Bobby's best friend. They came to watch me at Grimsby away. And when I had discussion, we lost 3-0. Steve Cabba scored a hat-trick. I was so poor in that game. Why they signed me, I don't know. But he knew everything that I did in that game, everything I did right, everything I did wrong. But when I had the initial the talks with him, the aura that man possessed, and kids use the word aura, the term aura now, and you don't really know what that means, but he would glow when he came into the room, and he was big. He was 6'3", 6'4". I mean, he looked a mountain of a man, and he'd just glow. And wherever he went, he knew everyone's name, knew everyone's job. Such a good guy. And I was young at the time. I think I was 18. We was in administration. It was about March or April time. They were selling off assets, Ipswich, and I was one of the assets that they wanted to sell off at cheap. I'd have you know, it was very cheap. But, because I was so young, and I grew up in Ipswich with my friends, and obviously Benty was there. I didn't really want to sign, but as soon as Sir Bobby started speaking, there was nothing else I was going to do. I was desperate to play for this guy, and he did actually say to me, because we agreed that I'd go back on loan, Ipswich, till the end of the season, help them get to the playoffs or maybe get promoted, then come back. And as soon as I signed, my agent asked him, well, when do you want us back? And he went, you're going nowhere, son. He said, you're on the bench at the weekend. And I ended up making my debut. I think it was West Brom. I made my debut.
Wow, incredible. I mean, obviously you came in as such a young player as well.
Yeah.
How difficult was it to try and break into that team? Because there were some decent players, especially in that midfield at that time.
Yeah, there was. It was difficult. I was confident in my own ability as well. You know what? And we've spoken about this before, you and I in particular. I wasn't mentally ready for that move, being so young. But I didn't realise I wasn't mentally ready for that move until I made the move. And I walk into the change room, and there's Alan Shearer, and I think, this is 2003, I believe. That's 7 years ago. I'm watching Euro 96 at home with my parents, like cheering your goal against Holland. And he sat there, and I just took myself to like the younger players. And then when James Milner came, it was quite ezy for me. I played with him with England 21s. I had Stephen Taylor there, Andy Farrell, who was in the youth team at the time. I hung around with them, and now I regret that so much. I regret not getting involved with like Alan Shearer, Gary Speed, Shay Given, Steve Harper. So I wasn't mentally ready for that, but I was also confident in my ability that I could break into the team. Lo and behold, the season passes. I played a few games. We got to the UEFA Cup semi-final. I pick up a bad knee injury in pre-season against Rangers, and 3 or 4, 6, 7 weeks into the season is where Sir Bobby left. And we'd already agreed that I was going to be one side, James Milner was going to be the other. I think it was maybe Dyer and Genus in the middle. That was going to be the 4.
Oh, right, okay.
So then Graham Souness came in, and that wasn't kind of his kind of type of player anyway. And to be injured when a man like that comes in was never a good start.
And then obviously that then leads to you moving on from Newcastle. Are there any regrets though? Do you wish you'd maybe stuck it out and seen what happened?
Yeah, I do. And this is I've got no bad feeling to Charlton at all. I loved my time, particularly the first couple of years when I was in the Premier League. I always felt that because I wasn't Graham Souness's kind of player, and I hold no grudge on him, I just felt that let's take a step backwards, as it were, to then come forwards again. And that didn't work out for me. We obviously 2 years at Charlton got relegated. I had opportunities to move again to the Premier League. I stayed just because I felt a promotion might have been on the cards. We had the best squad in the Championship. But yes, hindsight is a wonderful thing. We know that. And I actually had probably my best spell at Newcastle after the infamous fight between Dyer and Bowyer. I was sat in the stands. I think Nicky Butt may have been injured at the time.
Itching to get on there.
Get involved.
I think Genus was injured at the time, and I see them pick up a red each, and I'm thinking, there's no one else. They has to play me. And I mean, I think he tried to clean her or whatever, but they weren't available. So I ended up coming in. I think I scored 2 in the next 5 or 6 games at Old Trafford, one of them. And we had discussions about me staying, but I'd already verbally agreed to join Charlton. But I do regret that now. I wish I'd have stuck it out. Not because a few months, whatever it was later, Graham Souness left and Glenn Roeder came in and started bringing through the young players and playing them more. Just because it was such a huge football club. I didn't realise the stature of it until I'm away from it. And now I'm, 41 years old, and I've got my own kids and they're starting their football journey. And you're looking at a stature of a club like that and thinking, what an idiot. Why did you leave that all behind? But I try not to have many regrets, but that's certainly one of them.
That's fair. I mean, what was Souness like as a manager? Because obviously, when he came to Newcastle, he actually had a pretty big reputation. But Newcastle turned up his last managerial job, and I don't think people on Tyne's side reflect on it very favourably at all. Because obviously, coming in after Substitution was always going to be hard, but then equally he did dismantle that team that was built up, and in the end, it took a long time for Newcastle to recover. Glenn Roeder did a decent job. But I mean, what was he like to work on?
I'd never say a bad word about him, to be honest.
Of course,
because he works at talkSPORT. He might come through the doors now. But look, I try not to hold a grudge with anyone. I've had managers that don't like me, managers that love me, and I try and keep an open mind of reasons why. I just felt at the time I wasn't his type of player. In terms of a manager, I felt for him in a way because he is following someone like Sir Bobby, who's a hero for many, and not many wanted to see him leave at the time. So to follow that and then try to build your own team and dismantle the team that had got relative success at the football club, it must have been difficult for him. But he's his own man, he's his own manager, and he got rid of certain players and he had disputes with certain players. They're publicly known as well. But yeah, for me, I just thought, I'm not one of these. I think he brought Lee Bowyer in one of his signings. I believe it was one of his signings. But if not, he loved Nicky Butt. And I'm not that type of player. I never was. I tried to put a tackle in, made 1 tackle in my career, got sent off. Cost me a fortune. Believe that or not, that was my debut for Charlton at the Stadium of Light. I got so much abuse.
You're going to get it right.
I got so
That's
much
great
abuse.
work.
But look, I enjoyed my short time with him. I just wish I'd stuck it out and was more confident in what I could bring.
There were so many characters in that team. Who properly stood out for you in terms of some of the personalities in that squad?
It was it's different personalities for me though, because I was young, 18, 19 at the time, went into my 20s, I believe. The personalities was Alan Shearer's, God rest his soul, Gary Speed, Shay Givens. They were managers in my eyes. Shearer was coming to his end, 35, 36, whatever he was. And like I said, I'd watched him for England and he was like a manager. And you'd come in, he would be the first to talk in the dressing room. And then Sir Bobby would take over or Graham Souness would take over. So the personalities that I see were the management type of players. Everyone else, you had the group of obviously Craig Bellamy, Kieran Dyer, that were brutal to train with.
How brutal?
They would make it a living hell sometimes for younger players. And I'm not saying they picked out younger players, but for me, and I only see it as I grew older and more experienced, that they just demanded the best. And I see it now with Craig and Wales and the management job he's doing,
exactly.
demanding the best. And I didn't notice that. He actually gave me a bit of advice when I said I wasn't mentally strong enough. I went there and I'd get there, I'd do my stuff in training, then I'd leave relatively early, one of the first to leave. And he pulled me to the side and said, look, you've got all the talent in the world, but you don't want it enough. Because he was always the one. He was there at first and he was leaving last. And he never knew that went in. Yeah. And from that moment on, I was there, one of the first. I'd always go in the gym at the end, I'd leave, I'd do shooting practice at the end. That's because the advice he gave me. Whether it was meant that way, I don't know. But I look at it now and I think it was. He demanded the best. And in terms of making it hell, it's because he always wanted the ball. And if you didn't pass him the ball, I mean, I scored a goal against Bolton and I dribbled through and put it in the top corner. And even when I watch the video, I can see him screaming. And he's literally me to you away. Jack, he's me to you away. And when it goes in, it's like he's angry that it went in. But
sorry I scored, mate.
Sorry,
you
know what?
I want the ball.
All this is on the pitch. Off the pitch, great guys. Yeah. Great guys. Just like I said, I had my own little group, Stephen Taylor, James Milner, Martin Britton, people like that were coming through in the youth team. And I wish I'd have gone and been their friends instead.
You were also there during the filming of Goal.
Not only the filming, I was in it.
You were in Goal, The Dream Begins, because I can't remember you in it.
Well, I've told this story. I don't know if you've heard it, Jack. So we're saying like there's a camera crew coming, there's a film crew, there's a new football film, and we know what football films are like. They're normally really poor. Yeah. So in this camera crew comes quite famous names. I can't remember his actual name. Guy out of Face Off was there. I think Keira Knightley was in the film as well. I believe. I could be wrong there.
Yeah, it's Anna Friel.
Anna Friel, sorry. Yeah, Anna Friel was in it. And they came in, and what's the main character called?
Santiago
Nunez. Yeah. I mean, in terms of ability, terrible. Terrible. They had to impose his head onto Laurent Robert's free kick.
I know that against Liverpool.
He was trying it, couldn't do it. But yeah, they was like, right, we're going to do a scene, team meeting. And I was like, okay. And they picked me, Dyer and Genus. And they was like, you got speaking parts. And I was like, what? Amazing. And although I was shy to start with, I was actually all right by then. And so we're in a team meeting, he comes in and like, you're doing your scene and that. I had a line. Shall we hear it?
Yeah, go on.
My line.
Do you remember the line?
You remember the line? Here we go.
What's the line?
Question, boss. Where's Santiago? Because he was obviously not in the meeting. Took me about 8 takes, by the way. I'm like,
Mate, the in the post.
Sorry, now he's nailed it.
But honestly, we sat there, we've all gone up. I can't remember those 2 lines that they had. And we've said, I think it was Andy Answer was the producer of it. He'd done soccer, street football, Wayne Rooney.
Yeah.
And he was like, they love the scene, it's fine. I was like, we're definitely in it, yeah. So we go all the way to the cinema. Yeah, I'm sat there with my missus and I'm thinking, well, I'm sweating, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be in this film. It's a proper box office film. We didn't realise at the time. I'm sat there. Half hour goes, I'm looking, thinking, that's the game that the meeting was about, but it's not happened. Hour and a half, then the credits start coming up. I'm turning like that, my missus' eyes burning into my head, going,
question, boss, what have I been cut?
Honestly, I've not checked the deleted scenes, whether that's in there, but every time the film Goal comes up, I even bought the DVD to see, but I haven't...
bonus features.
Darren Ambrose. Are you not in that film, Dad? I'm like, oh, it's just terrible. I've not seen Andy since then.
What was it like having all the filming going on?
Yeah, a bit weird, a bit awkward actually, because a lot of it was in the European nights. They'd come away on a plane and stuff, so they'd get film content on the plane with the boys, and then they'd come into the gym when you're trying to work out, and they'd do shooting practice at the end in European nights, and you'd have to stay there because he can barely reach the goal line. And it's like, come on, just get one right. And obviously, you got Shearer and Given, people like that, just absolutely abusing them and like for bantering them. But it was a good experience. I wish the scene was still there, because that would be probably my best time at Newcastle. To be honest. Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, shame you weren't in Goal 2 or 3. No. But maybe one day, mate.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
In fact, the only mention I ever got in that film was I was in the reserve squad. I was like, cheers.
Cheers, guys, yeah. Anyway, just before we move on, by the way, I've got to ask you, what was your favourite kit that you wore?
The kit?
Favourite Newcastle kit, would you say?
I mean, it could be any of the black and white one. the black and white was Newcastle. I mean, I like the yellow one. There was the yellow one that was nice. I've given you a couple before. You like the black one, didn't you? The black European, and then there was a grey one. I think we only wore that European nights. But black and white was iconic, and to step out on the St James's Park pitch, black and white to the local hero being played, Blade and races as well. It was. I look at it now, and when I said even last night, I'm watching the build-up, and I'm thinking, did that happen? Did I actually play for this team? And you know, when you look at pictures, it was not many times, but yeah, I was actually up there.
Mate, there's a film about your time at the club. Honestly, you should watch it. It's brilliant. It's been a big question that fans want an answer to. Is there a stadium move on the horizon, or will the club be staying at St James's Park? Well, Newcastle's new CEO, David Hopkinson, said this week that the club are not ready to make an announcement yet, and that all options are still on the table. Let me just tell you guys a bit more about what he said. He said, what's clear is to win consistently, to be at the top consistently, and we need world-class facilities to generate that kind of revenue. St James's Park is incredible, but I think there's still opportunities, whether that's a renovated or reimagined St James's. We haven't made a decision yet. That's quite interesting, because for me, it felt as if the rumours swirling around were that there will be a stadium move, and they would look to build a new stadium. For him to at least mention that they're thinking about a renovated St James's, how do you look at that, Jack?
Oh, please stay at St James's Park. I don't know, it's got a lot of, it's so unique as a ground, and I just feel as a place to watch and play football, there's not many quite like it. And the atmosphere that's generated when Newcastle are on top, every single team says, or when they have to go and play Newcastle away, it's literally like that. No one wants to go there because it is such a, I think what Jose Mourinho said it, and he said basically, the fans aren't there to watch the game. They're there to play the game with their team. And that is what it should be. That is what supporting Newcastle should be. Now, I totally understand that they have to find some way of making more money. So if that's going to be more seats, it's got to be more corporate bits, okay, fair enough. But that location is perfect, right in the middle of the city centre. You know, it's the cathedral on the hill. You can see it from everywhere. It's the centre of Newcastle City. It's the centre of Newcastle. Newcastle is built around Newcastle United Football Club in St James's Park. There's not many other football stadiums in the country that are anywhere near as close to the city centre as that is. I appreciate that the idea was that we're going to move it to Leeds Park, so it would still be pretty central, yes. One thing I'd be worried about with the new ground is that it becomes, unfortunately for Darren, a bit like Tottenham, where I find it's an amazing ground, fantastic place, loads of people spend hours there.
It's Beyonce FC, isn't it?
Well,
it's an event space.
It is. The thing is, there's the only time I can think of Tottenham having a good atmosphere there was when they beat Arsenal 3-0.
Boxing's not bad, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But it is an interesting point. As a Spurs fan, how have you found the stadium move? You can't deny, and I've been to that stadium, it's absolutely incredible. In terms of the facilities it has, it's out of this world almost. Does it feel like Spurs and their home?
But White Hart Lane was iconic.
Yeah.
I loved playing at White Hart Lane. It's difficult because since the new stadium, not really been that successful.
Yeah.
So like atmosphere and noise and love for the club comes with success.
It does.
It's not really happening at the moment. I've been a few times, even I think we played Burnley in the Cup a couple of years ago. The atmosphere was fantastic, and it's like we was going through a bad patch, but the fans still turn up. But everyone remembers White Hart Lane, and that will be the same with St James's Park. And I'm in agreement. I think they renovate that and build up on that.
Yeah.
If obviously the powers that be allow that. I mean, you could sell out another 60,000 tickets at St James's Park. We know that, and you're obviously supporters. I've lived up there. It's an intimidating stadium to go to, and maybe round it off at the top. But I think you always struggle when you're moving, like West Ham as well, when you're moving for the first 5 to 10 years to get that real atmosphere back.
Yes, Emirates as well. You know, it took a while for Arsenal to even probably feel that they felt that this is their home or what have you. Always felt that the Emirates always felt a bit corporate and what have you. But maybe now they've turned it a little bit.
You get a lot of tourists, and that's why as well, because the stadiums are so big, and these, as you said, you can spend hours there, like Manchester United. If that goes ahead, I'm sure it is going to, but it's like a shopping centre.
No. You're going to spend days.
You're going to get tourists coming, and so if 50% of your stadium is tourists, the atmosphere is not going to be like a real homegrown, hardcore one.
The other thing is as well, when you even look at the example of Everton, you mentioned there White Hart Lane, arguably Highbury as well.
Yeah.
It felt like those grounds, as brilliant as they were and as much as people missed them, especially when you look at somewhere like Goodison Park, it was the end for that stadium.
Yeah.
It wasn't good enough for modern day football. Does it feel like St James's Park is even at that point? It doesn't feel like moving is a necessity.
No, I think there's some facilities that could definitely be improved, in terms of concessions and stuff like that. But they've improved it since it was under Mike Ashley. It was even worse. So they have actually made some improvements. Yeah, not a load, but in terms of I don't know, the thing with St James's Park is you're not going to get people spending hours and hours there because you've got about 500 pubs within a mile radius, and everyone's got their own pre-drinking ritual, and they've got their own pre-match ritual. I don't think that's going to change. We won't talk about that. But I don't think that's going to change if you move it a couple of, up the road to Leazes Park, because there was bars and stuff are still there. So I don't. It's not going to have the same impact as the Spurs one. I don't think you're going to get as many people in the ground there drinking and spending money in the stadium as much. I think that part of it you won't get a lot of.
Looking ahead then to the next games, up next to Newcastle, it's Burnley at home, which for me, Darren, feels like the perfect game. After that disappointment against Spurs, feels like the perfect game to bounce back, get 3 points, heading into what is a huge week with Leverkusen in the Champions League, and then the Tyne-Wear Derby at the Stadium of Light.
Yeah, it is. But again, when you're going through these periods, Burnley is a difficult team to play against, because they're everyone's favourites to go down as well. So they want to prove everyone wrong. Scott Parker, of course, has some history with the club. He'll be desperate for the win. These are difficult teams to play against. But as you said, they need to react off of a disappointing last 30 seconds against Spurs, because if it wasn't for that, they would have won from this dubious penalty, but they'd have won it anyway. But I'd expect Newcastle to, if they perform like they did against Spurs, be a little bit more clinical. I expect it to be quite comfortable, to be honest.
Dubious, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, Darren's right, it's an important game though, isn't it? It's really important to pick up 3 points.
It is important because, as I said, 7 points from 9 looks great if that's 10 from 12.
Yeah.
If it's 8 from 12, where you played Burnley at home, it maybe doesn't look so good. But yeah, it's an important game. I feel like these are the games that Newcastle usually don't have too much trouble with. Traditionally under Eddie Howe, a team who are in the relegation zone come to St James's Park, it's usually a relatively comfortable win. I would expect, but I want to see Jacob Ramsey start. This feels like the perfect game for him, because I feel like Joe Linton was good against Everton. I thought against Spurs last night, he just kept giving the ball away. And I need to see more of Ramsey or a more creative player in the midfield, just to try and open up a team like Burnley, who are going to come in and they're going to try and sit there and they're going to try and get a point, aren't they? I can't imagine they're really coming to try and take all 3 realistically, because I think they've lost their last 4 in a row, something like that, and they're playing against Crystal Palace.
Yeah, Darren, all roads lead to the derby, the first league meeting between the two for a long time. That comes after Leverkusen. I mean, from an outsider's perspective, because I'm sure it's a game like me that Jack has been thinking about a lot, how do you see that game, especially the fact that it is at the Stadium of Light?
It's going to be lively. It's going to be lively.
It is.
People don't understand. I didn't understand until I lived up in Newcastle how big that rivalry is, how big this game is, how the sheer hatred between support and look, football support. That's what I'm saying. People can be friends, Sunderland and Newcastle, but look, I knew a few Newcastle supporters that didn't want to be friends with Sunderland supporters. That's how big it is up there. I was pleased to see Sunderland go up, because I thought, what a game. Well, 2 games these are going to be. I'm really, really looking forward to this one. Like I said, you can't call derby games. You can't, especially at the Stadium of Light. They've been, in Newcastle's shadow for years and years now in terms of being the Championship and below. So they're gonna want to come and show that they're not in the shadow anymore. Yeah. And it's down to Newcastle and the players. I just hope when I was there, I never got to play in one of these derbies. I played against Middlesbrough and that's not the same.
No, it's not.
But I just hope there's enough Geordies or people up there that know what this is about. Because a lot of the players there won't even know about this. There's certainly know it in this week building up to it, because wherever you go, whether you're Sunderland, whether you're Newcastle, you're going to be stopped in restaurants, in supermarkets, in shopping centres. You make sure you win this game. They're going to know it for sure.
Well, I tell you what, before that, Jack and I are heading out to Leverkusen, looking forward to that. Actually, I'm a bit nervous about Jack. Honestly, one Stein.
Absolutely slander.
Darren's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Jack. Thank you as always. That's all we've got time for on this week's Inside the Toon. Big thanks to Darren Ambrose and Jack Cunningham. Make sure you join us again next time, even if it's just to find out what Jack gets up to in Leverkusen. Actually, you probably won't want to know. Don't forget you can find us on the talkSPORT and talkSPORT Newcastle YouTube channels.